Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC 266 is almost here. I am beyond excited for this fight card. It is just stacked from top to bottom with amazing fights. And I'll be doing a bunch of prediction videos on the channel, but this is going to be my full breakdown and prediction of Curtis Blaydes versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I've already done a couple other UFC 266 predictions. I'll throw the links in the description if you want to check them out after this one. And do me a favor, guys, if you enjoy these prediction videos, make sure to like the video. It really helps grow the channel. So first off, let's talk about Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He is 6-2 in the UFC, only 8 fights total within the UFC, but he has a lot of combat sports experience. He's been around for a while. He has over 80 kickboxing matches, so that just goes to show you how long he's been fighting for. And in this fight, I love that it's a striker versus grappler matchup. You have Jairzinho Rozenstruik. We know exactly what he wants to do. He wants to come in, he wants to stuff the takedowns, he wants to keep this fight on the feet, and he wants to knock you out. That's what he wants to do every single fight. And Curtis Blaydes on the other side, we know he wants to come in, take you down, control you on the bottom, and win the fight by decision or finishing you on the ground. And you look at Jairzinho Rozenstruik and you look over his resume. In his last fight, he fought Augusto Sakai and KO'd him at the end of the first round, a buzzer beater KO at the last possible second. And that's not his only buzzer beater KO. He has another one. We'll talk about that in a second. But that was a great win for him, you know. And he had a rebound after his loss over Cyril Gane. And in this Cyril Gane fight, I think that was his worst performance possible. He just showed nothing against Cyril Gane. He looked terrible. He had no aggressiveness. He wasn't able to push the pace. He didn't really look for a finish by any means. And he knew he was losing going into the fifth round and didn't even really try anything. I know it's easier said than done, but just to go out there and just put on a terrible performance like that, a lot of people remember that. And I kind of give him a pass because look at the quality of the name. Cyril Gane, he's now the interim heavyweight champion. A lot of people are even picking him to beat Francis Ngannou. So I can't really crap on him too much for losing to a guy the level of Cyril Gane. You know, I just can't. And if you look at his other loss, we'll get to his other loss in a minute. But first off, let's talk about Junior Dos Santos at UFC 252, August of last year. Junior Dos Santos came into that fight. I know a lot of people say he's washed. He's not in the UFC anymore. He has no chin. He came into that fight against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and he looked to be in the best shape of his life. And I picked JDS to win this fight. And the fact that Jairzinho Rozenstruik came out there and finished him with strikes was super impressive. I don't want to hear he's washed. I don't want to hear no chin. JDS looked so good coming into that fight, and Jairzinho Rozenstruik was the better guy. And also, JDS is just a legend of the sport and a former champion. So now let's talk about his only other loss in the UFC. He only has 2 losses in the UFC, and that was to Francis Ngannou. And what can you say about that fight? Francis Ngannou comes out, he blitzes him, he throws haymakers, he lands, and he KOs him. I don't care who you are within the heavyweight division. If Francis Ngannou touches your chin, you are probably going to sleep. And there's really not much to analyze from that fight. It only lasted, maybe 30 seconds or something like that. But, it is what it is. There's nothing you can say. Jairzinho Rozenstruik landed a couple good leg kicks, and then he got brutally KO'd. But what I will say about this fight, and it was more about before this fight, Jairzinho Rozenstruik begged to fight Francis Ngannou. Nobody else wanted that fight. Francis Ngannou looked like an absolute monster, and Jairzinho Rozenstruik begged for that fight. So that just goes to show you the level of confidence this guy has, that he's begging for a Francis Ngannou fight. Even though he loses his 2 losses, Cyril Gane and Francis Ngannou. You look at the fight before that, I was actually there live at this fight against Alistair Overeem, and I feel like that's where you can get the most information when breaking down Curtis Blaydes versus Rozenstruik. Because in this fight, Alistair Overeem, who's not particularly known as a grappler, he's a good grappler, but he's more of a striker, was able to take Rozenstruik down, control him on the ground. And in the 5th round, after losing every second of the fight for the most part, Jairzinho Rozenstruik jumps in with a leaping left hook, splits Alistair Overeem's lip wide open, and just sleeps him. And I know there was some debate about whether or not the fight should have been stopped because there was 1 second, the bell went off. Alistair Overeem was kind of down, but he wasn't necessarily completely out. But it is what it is. He gets the win, 5th round KO, and that just goes to show, his typical strategy. He wants to knock you out. And I've talked about it plenty of times. When a guy's losing a fight and sometimes they pack it in, they don't even try anymore, that's not Jairzinho Rozenstruik in this fight. He goes out there and KOs Alistair Overeem. And I know a lot of people are going to say, Alistair Overeem's washed as well, but still, he's a decent opponent, and the fact that he went out there, lost the entire fight, and then won by KO is something to be said for that. So now let's look over Curtis Blaydes. Curtis Blaydes is actually the younger fighter in this fight. He's 30 years old. Jairzinho Rozenstruik's 33 years old. Curtis Blaydes has a slight reach advantage. And also, I'm not sure if I mentioned it already, Curtis Blaydes is currently ranked number 4 in the UFC official rankings, and Jairzinho Rozenstruik is currently ranked number 6. Curtis Blaydes, we know what he wants to do. He wants to come in and take you down. And in his last fight, he looked pretty good, but it was the story of every one of Derek Lewis's fight. You're winning against Derek Lewis until you're not. And Curtis Blaydes was dominating this fight on the feet, in the grappling, everything. And he was just trying to strike enough to shoot in on the takedown. Derek Lewis was waiting on the takedowns. He lands a nasty uppercut and just puts Curtis Blaydes to sleep. It was one of the most brutal KOs of the year. Before that, he got a great win over Alexander Volkov. That win has aged very, very well. He was able to take Volkov down, control him on the ground, and win a decision. Before that, he TKO'd JDS as well. And that's another fight where he used the grappling to set up the punches. JDS was so worried about the takedowns and the clinch work that he ended up getting KO'd on the feet because he was worried about the grappling from Curtis Blaydes, and then he ends up getting KO'd by him. Before that, if you go back down his record a little bit more, he has a loss to Francis Ngannou. He was brutally KO'd by Francis Ngannou. He actually fought him twice and was KO'd by him once earlier in Francis Ngannou's career, and then once back in 2018. He has a win over Alistair Overeem. He was able to take Alistair Overeem down and KO him with elbows. But again, Alistair Overeem has the worst glass jaw in all of MMA. So how do I think this fight is going to go down? That's the real question. You look over their records, and even Derek Lewis, is not the greatest loss to have on your resume. But Derek Lewis just finds a way to beat guys. Derek Lewis is not the most talented guy. He doesn't have the most skills, but he has nuclear power in his hands. So that's a terrible loss to have on your record. But at the same time, Derek Lewis just finds a way to win. So my prediction for this fight, and I've flipped back and forth because really I could see it going either way. I am going to go Curtis Blaydes by decision. And I think that, this fight is kind of 50-50. If I had to give my percentages on it, I feel like I am 70-30 for Blaydes. I just feel like, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he was taken down by Alistair Overeem and controlled. And I know that was all the way back in 2019, but I'm wondering how much he evolved since then. We haven't seen him test it in the grappling department really since then. And I just don't know if he's going to be able to deal with Curtis Blaydes' grappling and wrestling. Now, I know there's the chance that, Rozenstruik could come out and knock Curtis Blaydes out. He was knocked out by Derek Lewis. He's been knocked out before by Francis Ngannou. And Jairzinho Rozenstruik has that power. But I just don't know if he's going to be able to do it because Blaydes is going to come out and try to just smother him, take him down, press him up against the cage, dirty boxing. And that's just going to be the story of the fight. I really feel like, Curtis Blaydes is going to be super careful, especially after getting KO'd by Derek Lewis. And even though Jairzinho Rozenstruik has crazy power, it's not the same, type of power that Derek Lewis has. So I really think that, this fight's going to play out. Curtis Blaydes is going to come in. He's going to be able to take Jairzinho Rozenstruik down, control him on the ground. He may get the finish, but Rozenstruik is just so tough and durable. I think most likely it's going to go to a decision. I think it's going to be a 30-27 decision. I think Curtis Blaydes wins every round. I think he gets one takedown per round, and he controls him on the ground. But I am curious, has Jairzinho Rozenstruik evolved since that loss to Alistair Overeem? That was a while ago. That was 2 years ago at this point in time. I'm curious to see that. He has to know his weakness is in his takedown defense. So can he stuff the takedowns of Curtis Blaydes? And let me tell you this. If he can stuff the takedowns of Curtis Blaydes, then Curtis Blaydes is in for a terrible night because Jairzinho Rozenstruik is an amazing kickboxer, and he will mess up Curtis Blaydes on the feet. He will kick the legs. He has nasty hands. He even has good high kicks, and I think he will probably finish Curtis Blaydes if he's able to shake off the takedowns. But it's just a matter of is he going to be able to? Because Curtis Blaydes not only goes for the takedowns, he's relentless. I think he had something like 15 or 16 takedowns in the Alexander Volkov fight. So it's not like, Rozenstruik's going to shrug off one takedown and then Curtis Blaydes is just going to give up. He is relentless. He will continue. Rozenstruik kind of slows down a little bit. I know that Rozenstruik does have his power no matter how tired he gets. In the Alistair Overeem fight, he was tired in that fight. And in the 5th round, he still knocks out Alistair Overeem. So he still has the power in the later rounds, even when he gets tired. But I just think Curtis Blaydes is going to be relentless. He's really going to grapple every single round. And even if Rozenstruik's able to shake off some of the early takedowns, he's going to continue to look for those takedowns, continue to press him up against the cage, dirty boxing, knees to the legs, and just keep looking for those takedowns. Eventually he's going to find it, control him on the ground, beat him up, and win a decision. I think there is a chance, a very slim chance, and I talked about it before in the Curtis Blaydes versus JDS fight. I think there's a chance that Curtis Blaydes could stop him on his feet. And I know that that sounds crazy, but if you really look at the fight, there's those guys that are just worried about the takedown. And I know Rozenstruik's going to come in and his hands are going to be low. He's going to be worried about the takedown of Curtis Blaydes. And he could get clipped up, just like Curtis Blaydes versus JDS. We've seen it time and time again where the obviously better striker gets KO'd by the grappler because they're so worried about the takedowns of the grappler. And I'm wondering if that happens in this fight. I don't think it will. I think Curtis Blaydes, obviously, I'm predicting him by decision, but there's a chance of that. If I'm Jairzinho Rozenstruik, I come out, I'm super conservative. I kick the legs hard and often. I keep my distance, use my footwork, and just try to outstrike him and eventually KO him. And I think that's the strategy that Rozenstruik is going to try to achieve, but I just don't think it's possible. Blaydes is going to smother him. And the other thing that's good about this fight, and I didn't mention, this is going to be in Las Vegas. This is going to be at one of the, I think it's the T-Mobile Arena. So it's not going to be the smaller cage they have at the Apex. Because if it was the smaller cage like they have at the Apex, I would almost be 100% certain that Curtis Blaydes was going to win. Because when they shrink that cage size down, it undoubtedly favors the grappler. And in this case, it's Curtis Blaydes. So, guys, do me a favor. Make sure to like the video and also comment down below and let me know your prediction for Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Curtis Blaydes. I'm genuinely curious. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.